Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to get right onto a project that was just recently previewed, and it seems like everybody wants to see it, so why keep everybody in suspense? This is a reel that Patrick sent in. It's the Penn Senator 10/0 reel. It's a heavy-duty reel for deep sea, primarily trolling. And this one is just coming in for a tune-up. Everything appears to be fine on it, other than it needs to be cleaned. It was just recently relined, and actually as I was doing that, Patrick was concerned that I was going to take all the line off. Well, I rarely, if ever, take line off of a customer's reels, but I always recommend as part of the regular service that they go ahead and replace the line if it's been a year since they did it the last time. So we'll get started on this one. While I'm getting started, I want to thank all of our first responders and essential personnel. I do appreciate everything you're doing during the pandemic to keep us healthy and to keep us safe. And for that, your dedication to your services, whether it's law enforcement, healthcare worker, EMT, or any of the first line or front line responders, is certainly appreciated. And thank you so much for everything it is that you do. All right, I'm going to take the external pieces off first. That involves taking off the handle screw and the handle. Sometimes people want to rock this back and forth if it doesn't come off easily. The best thing to do is just to take the star adjuster and work it in reverse, and it'll just pop it right off. Just like that. So a couple of things while we're doing this. I recommend wearing a protective glove to keep the chemicals and greases and the like off your hands. I also recommend using a parts tray. I use the bottom of a milk jug, but put all your pieces and parts that you take off in a central place, and that way you can take care of them to know where they will be when you go to find them again to reinstall. This one has a kind of a unique feature on it. You can service the drag washers on this reel without taking off the side plate. So a lot of folks like that. It's a sign of the older reels. And these reels have the old asbestos washers in it, kind of like a brake lining material. I believe it's asbestos. It's about a 1/16 of an inch thick, maybe an eighth. I'm kind of terrible with that sort of stuff. As long as they are clean, they don't require any kind of lubrication, but just be aware that as you're taking them out, that's what you're going to find. And most of the time you can get these right out simply by tilting them. And I'm going to build this stack in reverse. You can see there's a lot of them there, so this reel's got a lot of max drag on it, simply because of all of the drag washers in there. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. This one would go backwards. 5 drag washers. We should be emptying that main gear now. We are. So max drag is a function of the amount of drag area, surface drag area. When you have 5 big washers like this, you've got quite a bit of max drag. All right, so the main gear piece, or the washers, are out of this. So let's go ahead and take the side plate off. Now, one of the things I think you'll be surprised to see, there's nothing really crazy going on in this reel here from a technology standpoint. This was one of the first reels that Penn came out with. They came out with this Senator series going right back to their product introductions in the late 1930s. And they had a design that they believed in, and they just made the design or the pieces and the parts bigger. So when we take it off, is a broken side plate, but when we take it off, you're going to see that the side plate is near identical to this one, which is from a Penn Delmar reel. So, if it stands the test of time, why change? All right, so we're going to remove the side plate screws to get at the inner workings of the reel. Now, one of the things you should note is that the screw sizes are different. There's longer and shorter. The shorter ones belong in the reel seat. The reel seat is the part of the reel that attaches to the rod. So we're just going to take all these off. There's a lot of them. In this case, I'm not seeing a difference in size, interestingly enough. I don't know if we have a replacement screw in there or if they're just being unconventional about this one. Right now, all of the side plate screws are the same. Only 2 more to go. Some folks like to use a mechanical screwdriver, and I kind of said my piece on that. I don't like them, but if you need them because your hand strength isn't there, then I would recommend that at a minimum you can use them on the way taking the screws out, but don't use them on the way putting them in. Yeah, all of these screws are the same, so just doesn't matter which way they go back in when we go to reinstall the side plate. Normally Penn will shorten the screws on the reel seat. They didn't here. Okay, we also have this harness here. I don't know if I can get the harness off the lug, so I'm going to get the lug off. And as I said before, no surprises going on there. I have a second lug that just came out. If you look at that and you look at the Delmar, they're darn near identical except for width and breadth of the gears and the side plates and so on. But the overriding structure is the same. So the net on this one is don't be afraid to open up a 10 or a 12 or even a 16-0 Senator. You're going to find the same basic design regardless of the size of the reel. For Senators, and in some cases it's going to be the Long Beach and the Delmar and the other series as well. I can take this big boy. We've got the bearing has come out of the back of that, so let's go oil that bearing. Also like to test that while I have it here, so I'm just going to put a Phillips head screwdriver into there and make sure that the bearing's spinning, which it is. I can go right back into the side plate. The side plate is very clean. Nothing needs to be done there. There's no residual in that at all. If you like, you can take some steel wool. There's a little bit of tarnish on the metal parts. So you can take some steel wool and just gently kind of rub that away and get some of that tarnish off of there. While you have it open, it's always easier to do it this way than it is to do it with the spool in place. It's almost impossible to do it with the spool in place. But if you have the reel open, you can take advantage of the space there to go ahead and do that and clean that up a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to clean that ring off as well. And right now I'm getting tangled with this line, so I'm just going to move the spool a little bit further back. I come over and do the side while I have it. And I'm using just a metal polish that's kind of a non-abrasive or very low abrasion factor to it. You certainly don't want to go and kind of bugger up the side plates on a beautiful reel like this. So we'll go ahead and install that bearing there. Put that frame off to the side for a minute. Just grab a little bit more of the polish here. And then we'll get into the mainstay of this reel. There we go. And you can see it shines that up nicely. Just a little bit of polish, some 4-0 steel wool, and a paper towel to wipe it down. Just put that on the mainstay there. There's one on this side. To get this one off, you have to trip the free spool release about halfway, and then you should be able to just snake it out underneath. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing here. And again, the reel is nice and clean. The project just asked me to kind of make sure everything was good to go and to tune it up, and that's kind of what we're doing now, and that should be done on a regular basis. I've seen some reels come in lately that were beautiful reels to look at, but as soon as you took the covers off, they were pretty bad. They hadn't been serviced in a while. The owners made the point of cleaning them up after the trips, but they didn't make a good point of maintaining them on a regular basis. Just want to align the holes better here. There we go. Then you can flip your free spool down. All right, 4 bridge screws come through to hold the bridge on. So we're going to do kind of what I do any other time. I'm going to grab the screwdriver and remove the 4 bridge screws. And there is a spring involved in the anti-reverse dog in here, so you do want to make sure that you capture that spring as you move this through. In order to do that, I like to cup my hand behind me, and that enables me to slide the assembly out, and if the spring is prone to pop, it'll land in the cup of my hand. Now in this case, I guess I'm blessed that I have big hands, because that's a big gear sleeve behind us here. Alright, you can just see that it has popped, so if anything was going to spring, or any of the springs were going to jump, it would have just hit within the side plate here. I had another suggestion from a viewer, which I think is very good. Not this bag, but put the side plate inside a bag before you take that last screw out, and that way if it shoots, it's contained within the plastic bag. I thought that was a nice idea as well. All right, everything came through. Let's go find those 2 pieces that we know about are in there. And this one has the old flat spring in it. You can see by that. And we'll show you how to reinstall that. That's for the anti-reverse dog. And then here's your anti-reverse dog. And right now it's just a matter of cleaning it, lubing it, and getting it back into service. All of those go into my parts tray. This one probably could have come out through the front side. I didn't check. What you do need to check is the screws for the bridge. They're just like the other ones. There's 2 partially threaded screws. There's 2 fully threaded screws. The partially threaded screws go through the springs in the yoke, which are here, and that smooth surface is there to protect against catching on those springs. Next up then, we should be able to remove the main gear. And then we can remove this bridge. So there's a pin in here. And those of you that watch a lot of my Penn videos know you want to remove the gear sleeve. Sometimes you can just push that pin out. This time you can't. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this on camera, but I use a pin and just the problem with that, doing it that way, is that it rolls. So I may be off camera here. I'll just kind of tap that through, and then we can come back and work the disassembly on this. Kind of snaky. Not an easy thing to push through, but we got it. So that's the pin we're talking about, and I use a little punch. In this case it's just a little extended pin, and once you get that pushed through, you can remove your gear sleeve, because you want to service the bridge post. I want to get all the old grease off of it. Again, I'm just going to use the steel wool, and I probably have a little bit of polish on there, so I'm going to take the paper towel to wipe it off. And you'll notice on that bridge post you have a slot, and that slot, that's what controls or holds on that sleeve. It's going to go through, it's going to ride in. Now, of course it's going to ride in like this, but that's where it rides. That's why this won't fall off when you go to reinstall. Alright, I'm just going to clean up the dried grease on the bridge post then, or the bridge plate itself. If it had sticky grease in there, you go ahead and use a degreaser, like a penetrating oil, like a WD-40. In this case, this bridge is pretty clean. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put that bridge sleeve back on after we lubricate it. And to lubricate it, I'm going to use Penn Precision reel grease. Not because it's a Penn reel, but because it's a fishing reel. And I get that question all the time. Yes, use fishing reel grease on fishing reels, please. There's different characteristics of greases, so why not go with the one that's been designed for marine use? And if that point sits proud, you won't get the gear over it. So these are huge reels. They've been deep sea staples forever. There are others that are out there from this generation, some old Finors and others, but by far these were the ones that survived the best. Okay, this one's got some old grease on it, so the first thing I'm going to do is what I just was saying before about using a penetrating oil as a general degreaser. You can see some of the dried grease on the shoulder here. I'm going to spray that down, and I'm going to come back in with a soft brush. Wipe what I can off with a paper towel first. And I'm going to just use the soft brush just to clean the channels of the gear. If it was really stubborn stuff, you would have two alternatives. You could use a wire brush similar to the soft brush here, but most of the time a brush like this will work. You can use, Cons is going to hate me, but you can use an electric toothbrush. I'm just, every time I have the opportunity for it, I seem to be locked on my desk and don't have the foresight to think that maybe I should bring it over here and show you how to do it. But you can use an electric toothbrush with the attachment to do it. And just make sure that they're clear. Now you can see by this that this is a sturdy gear. This is, I believe it's stainless, and it's cut, and that's not going anywhere. But make sure all of the channels are nice and clean, that the teeth are straight, not chipped or broken, and that the gear is generally in good condition. When you do that, then come on back and put the new grease on, because that's one of the things that's going to make this reel kind of hum. Now you don't have to pile the grease on. The grease will work its way around the reel as you turn the reel, because you have a smaller diameter pinion gear than you do main gear, and so as it just kind of does the revolutions thing, it won't hit the same spot every time. It will move from spot to spot, tooth to tooth, and locale. So just get it well lubed, but you don't have to over lube it. Okay, we're going to clean out the inside of the channel now. Check for scarring. Sometimes that metal gear will wear through. The washers didn't wear through here. These are the asbestos ones, but particularly if you have the conversion to the HT100 ones, check for scarring. If a metal one came through and scarred, there's nothing much you can do other than probably replace it. All right back on to the shaft then. I'm just going to set this to the side for a moment as we come over to the other side plate. Just like we do with the other ones, you're going to push down. You're going to make sure this is in the off position. Push down to clear it, and just remove the jack. Then you can pull the pinion gear and yoke. You can pull the two springs, the yoke springs. The bearing is coming out, that's fine. We'll do the same thing here. Just going to wipe down that bearing. Going to test the bearing to make sure it works. Again, simply I just put a screwdriver in there. Just make sure it's turning, which it is. And then you can just load it up with some oil. I'm just going to put that right up here because we're going to come right back to that. This side does have an accumulation of old grease, so let's go get that out of there. You can see we have the chunky variety of grease here. And paper towels generally are the best for me. Somebody had asked me once about microfiber towels and things like that. I don't like to keep cloth rags and that around. The reason for that is you tend to transfer things from one to another, whatever's on that cloth. So I prefer to start with a clean towel and then kind of go to cotton swabs to get into some of the little crevices along the way. They're cheap enough. Just clean that up. Old grease tends to be an inhibitor to the reel, so get rid of it. Start anew. Sort of like the car engine. You don't want old and dirty oils and greases in there. You want to get that changed every 5,000 miles, or in this case every year, because that's the best results you're going to get in terms of maintaining it. Just put the bearing back in. There's limited stuff on the back of this jack, so let's get that off. Just a little bit of grease there. Front of the jack is fine, but we'll just use the steel wool on that to get any surface tarnish or the like off of that. Over here to our yoke, that's got some old greases on there. Let's get that off. Again, I like to start and work the softest that I can. In other words, I'm not going to go in there with files or anything and try and remove soft grease. If I can get it off with a paper towel, that's my first option. And then second option would be the polishes or the WD-40s. And then eventually I would finish my options with more aggressive cleaners, but in this case we don't need it. Okay, we're going to come back with that penetrating oil again. We're going to do the same thing with this gear that we just did with the big gear. That is to kind of soak it with the WD-40 or penetrating oil. Doesn't have to be WD-40. Just happens to be what's on my bench at the moment. We're going to come back with that soft brush. You can tell right away it's cleaning those channels. And we're clear, and while I was doing that, I was also checking the orientation of the teeth, just like we did before, making sure that they're all straight or not broken or chipped or bent or anything like that, which they're not. And then I'm just going to use a cotton swab inside the pinion gear just to get any residual dirts out of there. And it looks like we have a little bit on the face here, so let's get that off. And that's what's going to intersect with the spool. So you just want to make sure that's nice and clean. All right, it's time for reassembly. It's as I mentioned, the reel is not that difficult a reel to work with. It's pretty much the same reel that Penn has made for all of the other varieties, just a lot bigger. All right, so kind of reverse of how we started. I'm going to just put those two springs in there. I'm going to take, I alternate greases. I like Real X and I like the Penn oils as well. I'm going to get some oil behind that eccentric, the free spool release, just to make sure that it works fine. I'm going to put a little bit of the blue grease onto the eccentric itself. And now we're going to just reset the yoke and the pinion gear. Nice coating of grease onto the yoke. And insert the pinion gear. Make sure that that's got an ample coat of grease on it as well. And again, both the pinion gear and the main gear, which it's going to intersect with, is going to pick up and transfer. So just make sure that they're both nice and lubricated. Okay, so we've cleaned our side plate. Let's go ahead and reinstall. Now I'm going to leave the washers out. They're all piled here on the side. I've pulled those out. I have my dog assembly set up. I've taken care to go back and grease all of the components of the yoke and the pinion gear and the jack. So it's time to reinstall. So we're going to take the two big screws, the screw springs, and insert those into the cavities. I'm going to place the yoke over the top of those springs. And push down on that assembly, and we're going to slide the jack over the top. So that's part one. I chose to remove the drag washers. We'll show you how to do that from the inside because it will only fall out if you go to put this in with the drag washers inside the main cavity of the gear at this point. Push down on the assembly. Bring the main gear in and rotate the bridge so that it's about 50 perpendicular to where it's going to finish. One of the threaded screws goes in from the bottom. If you're looking at this from the front of it, it's bottom left. If you're looking at it the way I am, it's bottom right. You want to insert the dog, and you want to make sure the dog gets behind the red hard washer there. Next up then is the flat spring that rides over the top of the dog, rides behind the stud, and rests on this side plate. So we'll see if we can do that up close. It's riding on top of the dog, under the stud, on the side plate. And then you can complete the rotation of the bridge. You want to make sure that that pinion gear comes through. You want to align the bridge with that screw, and you want to make a couple of turns on that just to get it started in terms of a seating. Once you've done that, you want to just come to the opposite side here. Just checking this bearing. This bearing will go back in. Just start the one on the opposite side, up top. Get that seated. Take the fully threaded screw to the bottom, which is now the top if you're looking at it this way. That screw didn't seat properly. I guess there was much more concern with the other one. All right, the fully threaded screw goes up top. And sometimes you need to just kind of take a visual on this. And if you have to, move the jack so that you have the screw aligned properly. Still playing around with that ball bearing in there. It will come to rest the right way. And we got that back in. And I just dropped one of those screws on the floor, so I need to apologize. Pick that up. And this is your final screw, which goes below. So I've only temporarily tightened, only by a turn or two, till I made sure all of these were in, which they are now. I've also been able to use my pick to push the bearing back into position. Kind of floats. Tighten all of that down. And you just want to turn it to make sure you hear your anti-reverse working. If you wanted to at this point, since we have that floating one, I can take the shaft and just push it through to make sure that we're seated properly, which we are. Okay, and it's time to reinstall this big guy. Then we'll put the washers on. So I have one of these as the harness lug that goes on the back. I have the trim ring that I used that I cleaned up. You want to align the holes for this. That lug will probably fall out again. I want to take my spool. I want to make sure that I have a coating of grease onto the shafts on both sides. And again, everything on here is fine. I'll just use a paper towel. It seems to be just a little bit of almost dust, but otherwise we're good there. Grab your spool in the main frame. Set that in there. Take our frame, which I kind of knew that lug would fall out of. Set this over the top. Check to make sure our bearing is okay. I have the two harnesses now. So we have to align these. This harness lug is going to go to the front. And my other harness lug is going to go to the back here. And then we can grab those screws and get started in terms of reinstalling that. Still haven't done the drag washers, but we'll get there again because this one can get serviced that way. We will service it that way. And I like to do these in opposing directions, just to keep the tension on and make sure that everything aligns nicely. If you needed to, you could use that pick that I use to center the hole. Go down here, put one in the middle of the reel stand, and all of these were the same length, so no big deal there in terms of which one's going in which holes. All right, now I'm going to come up top here, put one of them into the lug here. I don't like to start with the lugs. And the reason for that is it's difficult to align them. And if you've got any kind of symmetry issues in terms of getting these out, then you get quite a juggling act going there, at least initially. All right, I'm not sure I'm through this lug here. Let's see, maybe this is one of those I'm going to use that pick for. To just do a quick alignment on it. Off by just a little bit, but it's enough. So beautiful reels, big game reels, been around a long time, treasures. I saw one, a 16-0, which is the biggest that they make. I saw one on eBay the other day for, I think it went for $800. I mean, I'm not in the market for those, but I just found them quite amazing that that's the price they were still bringing on a reel that certainly has been around a long time. All right. Now we can go in and do that drag stack there. Tighten them all down. Some of them I may have just got started, so make sure they're all nice and tight, because boat vibration will loosen these screws. Okay, so let's reset then. Here's your drag stack now. I'm not sure if I reviewed this earlier when I decided to take these out. You have 5 and 5 and a bell washer. The bell washer is the curved one. That's the top. You have 5 of these asbestos. They don't require any kind of lubrication. You have 3 keyed washers that are round, 2 washers with tabs on them, or eared washers. The keyed washers have the flat surfaces inside. You start with a hard washer, a round washer, hard washer, eared washer, hard washer, round washer, hard washer, eared washer, hard washer, keyed washer, and cap. So here we go. This has made it easy here in terms of how to install the drag stack. Hard, round, or keyed washer. Hard, eared washer, which goes in the slots of the main gear. This one's being particularly cooperative. Drag washer, keyed washer, drag washer, eared washer, drag washer, keyed washer, cap washer. That's it. That's how that goes together. We have the opportunity here to clean a little bit of that minor blemish or tarnish off this. So let's go ahead and do that on both sides. Polish it up. This goes on next. Like what I'm hearing, put it in gear. Like what I'm seeing. Turns like a charm. Actually, sounds like a spinning wheel at an arcade game. All right, there's one little washer. It's a backup washer to the handle. Handle goes on next. Handle screw goes on. That's the same size screw as a 6/0 reel. This tool, a lot of people ask me about the tool. This is an Allen Tanny aftermarket wrench for Penn reels. It's available through mysticparts.com. If you work on big reels, or if you work on a lot of Penn reels, I highly recommend the tool. It's thicker and it's longer than the wrench that comes with Penn, and Just makes the whole process all easier with that lock nut or lock screw. And this one's just about done. You need to line the indentation in the handle nut or handle screw with that set screw. And I guess I'm not totally aligned. It's hard looking at it this way, but I'm trying to do it for the benefit of the camera. Sometimes I don't get them lined up right. There we go. Put that little screw in. This is it. This is the Penn 10.0. Nicely cleaned up, moved. That drag is on tight. I'm going to back that drag off now. We've proven that it works. Give it a spin. Look at that. What a beautiful reel that is. Ready to go sharking or tuna or whatever Patrick chooses to do with this one. I guess what he'll choose to do is I need to put this reel back the way I found it, which was with the line tied to the post here. So let's go do that. Just so it doesn't spin free all over the place. And that's it. That's your Penn Senator 10.0. A beautiful reel, nicely cleaned up. And this one's ready to go fishing. And hopefully Patrick catches a lot of nice big fish with it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Again, if you're a first responder or essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do. And if you have any comments or questions on any fishing reels and you want to ask, just leave them in the comments section. I try to reply to all, and it doesn't have to be on this particular reel. Finally, if you have a reel that needs to be serviced, then you're not up for servicing it yourself, then contact me by email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with the service information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.